Assalamualaikum dear students. Today I'm going to teach you about ASP.NET MVC5 routing. In the previous lecture we had learned about MVC5 for the structure, and we had seen the default folders which MVC creates for us, and the most important one were the controllers folder, the views folder, and the models folder. And I had explained the purpose of all these folders which I have just named. So guys, this is Bursa Hussain, and as usual, before going to get started, I would like you all to do like, subscribe, and share my videos so that other students can also get benefit from it. Dear students, in ASP.NET Web Forms, every URL must match with the specific .aspx file. For example, here, I have shown you a URL http://domain/teachersdata.aspx. It will be mapped to teachersdata.aspx file, which contains the code and the markup for rendering a response to the browser. The very important thing which I want to inform you here is that the routing mechanism is not specific to MVC framework. It can be used with ASP.NET Web Form application or MVC application. ASP.NET introduced routing to eliminate needs for mapping each URL with a physical file. Routing enables us to define URL pattern that maps to the request handler. This request handler can be a file or a class. In ASP.NET Web Form application, request handler is .aspx file, while in MVC application it is a controller and an action method like index, which I have shown you here. For example, http://domain/teachers will be mapped to teachers controller and the default index method of the teachers controller.cs class. So guys, let's look at what actually routes are. Route defines the URL pattern and handler information. All the configured routes of an application stored in RouteTable and will be used by routing engine to determine appropriate handler, class, or file for an incoming request. The routing engine will determine appropriate handler, class, or file for an incoming request. And the following figure illustrates the routing process. This figure has been taken from tutorialsteachers.com website. You can go and visit that website. That is a very informative and that explains the complete MVC to you in a very informative way and in an easy way. So let's look at this figure and see how a URL request is mapped with the incoming request is mapped with the route table, and once the incoming request is mapped, the response is sent, and if it is not mapped, response with no will be sent to the browser. So whenever a request comes from the browser, it is looked into the route table. You can see here route 1 is mapped with a URL pattern, and against each URL pattern it is decomposed, and the relevant handler is taken from the route table. And if we see the URL pattern has the specific entry into the route table will send a yes response. The relevant controller and the action method will be executed, and our response will be sent back to the browser. If no match, no URL matches with configured routes, a no response will be sent, means a 404 error will be returned back to the browser and will be displayed to the end user, which will say that no specific page found on the specific web server. So in order to configure a route, we will have to go to the route config file. You can find this route config file under the folder of app_start. Here I have already opened a route config.cs file. It contains a class route config under the namespace of my first MVC, which was also the name of my project, which I had first created in order to explain the MVC architecture. So the route config file has a static method with the name of register routes, which contains a route collection object. The route collection provides a collection of routes for ASP.NET routing. So we have created by default created an object of route collection class. So here we can see the first line, which defines some rules in order to ignore them. For example, we have used an extension method ignore route here. It is an extension method which is used to ignore the specified URL route for the given list of available routes. Here we have ignored the source.axd files / all kind of path info, represent text as a sequence of UTF-816, so which is a basic string. We have defined here whatever you want to you do not want to show, you do not want to be find out on the internet, you can define here. Though you cannot so all such kind of routes will be ignored, and you can make your application more secure. So by default, whenever you let the MVC to create your default routes, it will create a default route in routeconfig.cs file. Routeconfig.cs file has a route name. You can define here the route name. Right after the route name, you can define the URL pattern. Here we have defined controller / action / an optional ID parameter. So after having defined the URL pattern, you can also define the default an object that contains default route values. You can create new anonymous type, here we have defined an anonymous type. Controller default controller, which is here home, and action default action method which will be fired. Here it is index, and an ID parameter which is an optional parameter that is used by the MVC handler. So class during the routing. So this is the default routing mechanism. The MapRoute is an extension method of routes collection class. So within that MapRoute method, we have defined it. If no URL is matched with this URL pattern, the route table will just return no, and the 404 page will be returned to the browser. In the same way, you can configure other routes using MapRoute method of route collection. This route collection is actually a property of RouteTable class. The URL pattern is considered only after domain name part in the URL. For example, as I had shown you here, domain http://domain/teachers/ you can define the action method / you can define the optional parameters to the action method. Here I have also defined another route in my route config.cs file. This route is basically defines a name of the route to map. Here the name is student. So I have a URL pattern for the route. The URL pattern is student/id/name/student's ID. You can see here that ID, name, and student ID are the optional parameters. Also, the important thing which you need to notice here is that I have just mapped the students controller here, and after the domain name, it means that I want my patterns in the way that whenever a domain name will be written, after having written the domain name, the request will be directly passed on to the default index method of the student's controller class. So in that way, all the requests will be handled in that method, and you can also pass the optional parameters which you can further use in your inline methods of the students class. The other thing which is very important to notice here is that the sequence of the defining the map routes. A sequence is very important. MVC follows first in first out method, means the first request, the first route which will be found in the route config file will be handled first. Whenever the incoming request comes, the map route's first method will be evaluated. Its URL pattern will be evaluated, and if the request does not match with the URL defined the first route, the very next route will be evaluated. Here the very next route is the default route. If no URL pattern satisfy the incoming request, a 404 page will be returned to the browser, and it means no match was found in our routes table. So so the next topic is route constraint. You can also apply restrictions on the value of parameter by configuring routes constraints. For example, the following route applies a restriction on ID parameter, that the value of an ID must be a numeric value. It cannot contain any kind of other data types like strings, double, arrays, etc. So in order to define that, I have just introduced an other parameter of the map route, a set of which is the constraints. Constraints basically defines a set of expressions that specifies values for the URL parameter. Constraints colon new anonymous type. Within the new anonymous type, I have mentioned the ID parameter which I had written here. You must write the same parameter here. Name is very important, otherwise it will not be matched. So ID parameter is equals to at the rate of sign double quotes backslash d. It means I am defining here a regular expression, and I am specifically mentioning here that my ID parameter can only contain the numerical values, and it cannot have any other data type. So classes 0 or 1 entry of the numeric value. So this was all about the constraints. So let's see how to configure and how to register our routes. And in order to register our routes, we need to go to a very important file which is called global.asax file. So let's open global.asax.cs file. This file is basically the main method of our application. The complete application gets started from here. It contains a protected method which is called application underscore start. And within the application start event in the global.asax file, we will register our routes. Here we have used route config.register routes, and we have passed routes table, which basically stores the URL routes for an application. Routes method gets a collection of objects that derives from the route base class. So whenever the application will run, the request will come to the global.asax file, and after coming to this AX file, the route config.register routes, which was the static method of that class, will be invoked, and the relevant map route method of the routes object route collection extension method will be rendered, and the URL pattern within the MapRoute method will be mapped with the incoming request from the browser. If the map founds that the relevant controller and the action method will be fired. If no match is found, 404 or page not found will be returned to the browser, and the end user will be notified accordingly on the screen of on his or her screen. So this was all about the routing. Thus routing plays a very important role in MVC framework. And at the end, just to summarize what we have learned today, we need to remember that routing plays an important role in MVC framework. Routing maps URL to physical files or classes, controller class in MVC. The second thing which we need to remember is route contains URL pattern and handler information. URL pattern starts after domain name. The third thing which we need to keep in our mind, that is routes can be configured in route config class, and we can also define multiple custom routes which we can configure into the route config .cs file. The fourth thing is route constraints. We can apply different constraints on our parameters, which we can pass along with our URL in order to protect our application from malicious kind of attacks, and in order to make sure that the correct data is being provided to the correct parameter relevant according to the type we have defined. The last but not least, a route must be registered in application underscore start event in global.ascx.cs file. So this was all about the routes and the routes and the routing in MVC 5. Thank you very much for listening me, and at the end, as usual, if you want to get your websites and mobile applications done from us, you can just reach us at info@solutionsummit.com and also at solution_summit@yahoo.com. We will definitely get back to you with a code for your need, and we will provide you an economical and trendy website or an application for your mobile. So do not forget to like, subscribe, and share my video so the other people can also get benefit from it. Thank you very much, guys. In the next lecture, we will look at the very important component of MVC, that is called the controller. Thank you.